Welcome back to the deep dive. You know I love to bring on experts so we can all boost our communication skills.
Yeah.
And today, we're going deep with Barbara Minto
Mm-hmm.
and her super famous pyramid principle.
That's a classic.
Have you ever noticed that some people just nail it when it comes to making their ideas stick?
Oh, absolutely.
It's like they know exactly what you're thinking
Yeah.
and they lay it all out so clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
Minto's work might just be their secret weapon.
I think you're right.
We've got excerpts from her book today,
Oh, great.
plus some real-world examples
Wonderful.
to make all of this super practical for you.
Love it.
So, expert speaker, are you ready to build some communication pyramids with us?
I am so ready. Minto's work is so timeless
Mm-hmm.
because it's all about working with how our brains naturally work,
Right.
not against them.
I love that.
And that's the key to better communication.
Okay, so for anyone listening who's like, what in the world is this pyramid principle?
Yeah.
Can you give us the TL, just the
Totally.
big idea?
Well, it's all about organizing your thoughts in a way that mirrors how our minds actually process information.
Okay.
So instead of just
Yeah.
throwing a ton of ideas at someone all at once,
Mm-hmm.
you structure your message logically.
Gotcha.
You're essentially building a pyramid with your ideas.
Okay, I'm kind of getting it, but why a pyramid?
Okay.
Why not? Like, I don't know, like a beautiful web of interconnected ideas.
Well, I think pyramids are all about hierarchy,
Yeah,
right? There's a really clear sense of what's most important,
I see.
what's secondary.
Okay.
Our brains are wired to look for patterns.
Mm-hmm.
We group things together to make sense of the world.
Right.
It's like when we look up at the stars,
Yeah,
we see constellations.
we do.
We're always trying to find structure,
We are.
and that's what pyramids provide.
Okay, I get it.
Right.
So it's about that structure.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it's like when I try to make a grocery list, if I'm just like, oh, I need milk and I need dog food and I need...
It's like I'm guaranteed to forget something.
For sure.
But if I can group those things,
Right.
like produce dairy,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
snacks, whatever,
exactly.
then it's so much easier for me to remember it.
That's a pyramid.
Oh, wow.
You're already a pyramid builder
I am.
without even realizing it.
Amazing.
And this goes back to that whole magical number 7 concept.
Yes.
Our short-term memory can only hold like
Yeah.
7 things at once. And pyramids,
Wow.
they help us take those complex topics
Mm-hmm.
and break them down into these
Yeah.
smaller,
Totally.
more digestible pieces,
Yeah.
much more manageable.
Okay, so if I'm thinking about explaining a project at work
Mm-hmm.
or even telling a story,
Yes.
I should be thinking about how I can group these ideas logically.
Absolutely.
So it's not just this
Yeah.
jumbled mess that everyone's trying to pick through.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You've got to give them the structure.
Give them that pyramid.
Yeah. Okay, I love it. Now, you mentioned that there are 2 ways to build a pyramid,
Mm.
and I am ready to pick my construction method.
Okay, great.
Walk me through it.
All right, so we've got top down
Uh-huh.
and bottom up.
Okay.
Top down is classic Minto.
Okay.
You start with your main point.
Okay.
It's the top of your pyramid.
Uh-huh.
Then you break it down
I see.
into supporting arguments and evidence,
Yeah.
just like the levels of a pyramid.
Okay.
This is a great approach if you already have a pretty good idea of what your main message is,
Okay.
what you want to communicate.
So you know where you're going,
Right.
but what about when you're starting with just a bunch of scattered thoughts?
Sure.
Like my grocery list
Yeah.
before I organize it.
That's where bottom up comes in.
Okay, tell me about bottom up.
So you start with your evidence,
Okay.
all those juicy details and facts.
Mm-hmm.
You group similar ideas together,
Gotcha.
and then it's like you're a detective.
Oh.
You draw inferences from those groupings to uncover your main point.
I see.
That's the top of your pyramid.
So it's like you're discovering your main point
Exactly.
along the way.
Oh, got it.
No, I love that. Okay, so no matter where you start,
Mhm.
you end up with this nice, solid, structured pyramid of ideas.
That's the goal.
But how do we make sure that this pyramid doesn't just crumble under pressure?
Right.
What are the rules?
So Minto gives us 3 key rules to
Uh-huh.
keep our pyramid standing tall.
Okay.
The first rule is that every idea at any level of the pyramid has to be a summary
Mm-hmm.
of the ideas grouped below it.
Okay.
So no random tangents.
Got it.
It's got to summarize.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's like a chain of command for ideas.
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
Each level reports to the one above it.
Yeah, I love it.
All right. So the second rule is that all the ideas within a group have to be the same kind of idea.
Okay.
This might seem super obvious,
Uh-huh.
but you would be surprised how often people end up mixing apples, oranges, and running shoes.
That's not a good salad.
Not a good salad at all.
No.
And then the third rule
Mm-hmm.
is that those ideas within a group have to be in a logical order.
Okay.
Think chronologically,
Mm-hmm.
by importance,
Hmm.
or even spatially, if that makes sense for your topic.
So if I'm explaining how to build a website,
Right.
I wouldn't start by choosing the colors.
All right.
And then jump to registering a domain name.
Exactly.
There's a natural order.
Yep.
Okay, that logical order makes a lot of sense.
It makes it so much easier to follow your thinking.
Like I'm feeling like a pyramid architect now.
That's great.
But what about the introduction?
Okay.
I always thought that was just,
Yeah.
hi, nice to meet you.
Hmm.
Here's what we're going to talk about. Boom, done.
Right.
But Minto would be like, think again.
I think so.
Right.
Yeah.
Because she says that the introduction,
Hmm.
it's a strategic tool.
Absolutely.
You're
correct.
hooking your audience.
Yeah.
You're making them care about what you have to say.
You want them to lean in.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How do we do that?
So she uses this really great framework called SCQA,
Okay.
which stands for situation, complication, question, answer. It's all about setting the stage,
Okay.
drawing your audience in.
Walk me through it. I'm all ears.
So the situation sets the scene,
Okay.
and it tells your audience, your reader,
Mm-hmm.
what they already know.
Okay.
It's establishing common ground.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Yep.
you introduce a complication.
Okay.
Something changes.
Okay.
A problem arises.
Mm-hmm.
A new opportunity emerges.
Right.
Something that disrupts the status quo.
So you're creating that little feeling of like, something's not quite right here.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that naturally leads to a question in the reader's mind.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to do now? How do we
Yeah.
solve this?
I see.
And then finally,
Okay.
the answer to that question
Yeah.
is the main point of your communication.
The top of your pyramid.
Exactly.
Oh.
So you've set the stage.
Yeah.
You've created the need,
Uh-huh.
and then you deliver your main message.
Oh, okay. So it's so much more engaging than just saying, here's what I'm going to talk about.
Right, exactly.
No one wants to hear that.
Do you have an example from Minto's work?
Yeah, she has a great one from a letter to the editor, which starts with this line. Granted equal pay, women could finish off worse than before. That is, there could be a wider rather than a narrower gap between the average earnings of women and men than today.
Okay, so that definitely makes you stop and think.
It does.
You've got the situation, the push for equal pay,
Mm-hmm.
but then, bam,
Yeah.
a potential
Sure,
complication
a twist.
that makes you wonder, wait, how could that be?
Yeah,
And you're immediately hooked.
exactly.
You want to hear the author's explanation.
You want to know more?
I love it. And that's the power of a well-crafted introduction.
But we also have to think about the way that we reason.
Mm,
And Minto dives into two fundamental patterns.
Right.
Deductive and inductive reasoning.
yes.
Ooh, I vaguely remember these from college.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Can you refresh my memory?
Absolutely.
How do they work?
So think of deductive reasoning as leading to a logical, therefore, conclusion.
Okay.
You start with a general statement,
Mm-hmm.
and then you apply it to a specific case.
Gotcha.
Minto uses that classic example. Birds fly. I am a bird, therefore I fly.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
all about those if-then connections.
If A, then B.
Exactly.
Okay, so if my premise is all dogs are mammals,
Mm-hmm.
and my specific case is Fido is a dog,
Right.
my conclusion would be, therefore, Fido is a mammal.
You got it.
Perfect.
Nailed it.
Now, what about inductive reasoning?
So inductive reasoning is more about grouping similar ideas together
Okay.
and then drawing an inference from their shared characteristic.
Okay.
It's like you're piecing together clues
Sassy.
to reach a conclusion.
Yeah. So if I see that my website traffic is down,
Uh-huh.
my social media engagement is low,
Hmm.
and my email open rates are plummeting,
Okay.
I might conclude
Yeah.
inductively
Yes.
that my marketing strategy needs an overhaul.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm seeing that pattern,
Yeah.
and then I'm drawing a broader conclusion
Right.
based on all those observations.
You got it. This is so cool. I never thought about logic as a superpower,
It kind of is.
but now I'm seeing the light.
Yeah.
But even with all of this great logic and my beautifully structured pyramid,
Yeah,
I still have to actually turn those ideas into words.
absolutely.
And that's its own challenge.
It is.
So what are some of the biggest pitfalls that we need to avoid when we're actually writing?
I think one of the biggest ones is not checking your thinking rigorously enough.
Okay.
It's so easy to get attached to your ideas
Yeah.
that you miss those little logical flaws.
Right.
It's really helpful to get a fresh perspective, like having a friend proofread your work. Yes.
And just say, wait a minute,
Yeah.
this part doesn't quite make sense.
Help me out here.
Exactly.
So it's about that self-awareness and that skepticism.
Right.
Okay, but then what about the actual process of writing?
Yeah.
How do I turn those pyramid points into engaging, readable prose?
Well, this is where Minto drops a gem.
Ooh, tell me.
Start with the image.
Okay.
She really believes that good writing should paint a picture
I see.
in the reader's mind.
Okay.
Use vivid, concrete language.
Uh-huh.
Avoid that dry, abstract language.
Gotcha.
So she'd much rather read, imagine a world where then it is imperative that we consider.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Because one is like watching a movie.
Yes.
And one is like reading a technical manual.
Exactly. Okay, I get it.
You want to engage the senses?
Now, what if I'm dealing with a situation that's just messy?
Sure.
You know, there's no clear structure to begin with.
Right.
It's like trying to solve a problem with a million moving pieces.
How do I even approach that?
Well, that's where Minto's ideas about problem solving for structureless situations can help.
Okay.
It's all about being comfortable with the unknown, embracing the ambiguity.
Yeah.
She calls it scientific abduction.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
It really is.
Tell me more.
So it's like being a detective.
Okay.
But instead of solving a crime, you're trying to understand the underlying structure of a problem.
I see.
You start by defining the problem.
Okay.
Even if it's initially really broad and kind of fuzzy.
So I can just acknowledge this is a mess.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even know where to start.
Right.
Yeah.
Then you try to break it down into smaller pieces.
Okay.
More manageable chunks.
So I'm looking for those entry points, those little threads I can start to pull on.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then as you explore each of those chunks, it's all about looking at it from different perspectives.
Okay.
Challenging your assumptions. And gathering as much information as you can.
I see.
It's a very iterative process.
So it's a lot like scientific research. You know, you're testing and refining your understanding.
Exactly.
Okay, this is starting to come together.
Yeah.
So whether I'm writing a report, giving a presentation, or even just trying to make sense of a complex problem.
Absolutely.
The pyramid principle can help me think clearly and communicate effectively.
It's a really versatile tool.
I love that. And I love that Minto believed that this way of thinking can be applied way beyond the business world.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I can use this in my personal life, too.
Definitely. It's about analyzing arguments, making decisions, and even understanding those really complex systems that shape our world.
It's like a framework for thinking about anything.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's pretty powerful.
Very powerful. Okay, so we've laid the foundation. We know what the pyramid principle is.
We do.
We know why it's so valuable.
Yeah.
We know the basic rules.
We've got the tools.
We've got the tools to start building our pyramids.
We're ready.
But now we've got to put it all into practice, right?
Right.
And that's what we're going to do in our next part.
Exactly.
We're going to talk about how we actually use the pyramid principle in our everyday lives.
I can't wait.
Me too. Stay tuned for part 2.
It's like having this mental toolkit you can use for almost any challenge.
I love that.
And the more you use it, the sharper those tools get.
Okay. I am so inspired to start building pyramids in every area of my life.
I love it.
But before we unleash our listeners on the world with this newfound knowledge, let's talk about one more super important piece.
Okay.
Presenting key takeaways.
Yes.
Drawing insightful conclusions.
Absolutely.
Because what's the point of all this amazing thinking if you can't deliver that, like, satisfying aha moment?
Exactly. You've got to bring it all together.
Yes. So how do we do that?
Well, Minto really stresses the importance of summarizing statements.
Okay.
Those clear, concise sentences that capture the essence of your argument.
Yeah, because let's be honest, we're all busy people.
For sure.
We need that TLDR, that executive summary, to get to the heart of the matter.
Right, to the point.
Quickly. So these summarizing statements are key.
Absolutely.
But it's more than just being brief, right?
It is, yeah.
Because Minto would say that every idea in your pyramid, from the tippy top to those supporting details at the bottom, should be a clear, standalone statement.
It should.
That sums up the ideas grouped below it.
That's right.
So it's like every level of the pyramid has its own mini conclusion.
You could say that.
It's like, here's what you need to know.
Yeah, like a little takeaway.
Okay, I love it. Now, how do we make these summaries even better?
Okay, well, Minto suggests using strong verbs
Okay.
and avoiding that vague, abstract language.
So instead of saying there might be some issues with this project, I'd say something like, the project faces 3 major risks that could delay its launch.
Perfect. Much better.
Right.
Much clearer.
Specific,
Get out.
direct.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so when we're talking about drawing those bigger conclusions, we've got deductive and inductive reasoning again.
They're back.
Those pyramids are back to guide us.
Always there.
So deductive conclusions, they flow directly from our premises.
Mm-hmm.
It's that if A, then B, therefore C.
Classic logic.
Okay. And then inductive conclusions.
Yeah.
Those are more about spotting patterns.
Right.
Making inferences.
Mm-hmm.
So if I see that all the best marketing campaigns for our product have focused on storytelling, emotional connection, I might conclude that those are the keys to connecting with our audience.
Exactly.
Okay.
You're observing a pattern, drawing a conclusion from that evidence.
But it all comes down to that careful analysis and critical thinking.
Always.
I've got to make sure that I'm not,
jumping to conclusions.
Just like making things up based on flimsy evidence.
Absolutely. You need solid evidence.
Now, how do we make sure that our inductive conclusions are truly insightful?
Okay, that's a good question.
Those aha moments? How do we get there?
Well, Minto would say, ask yourself these questions.
Okay.
What's the common thread that links these ideas together? What's the significance of this pattern? And what are the implications for action?
Okay, so it's about identifying the pattern, but also really digging into the so what.
Exactly.
Like, what does it all mean?
That's where the critical thinking comes in.
Okay, love it. But even with the sharpest insights, there's still the challenge of presenting them in a way that is clear,
absolutely,
compelling,
and
dare I say, memorable.
It's got to stick.
It's got to stick. So how do we do that?
Well, you're hitting on something really important.
Yeah.
Because no matter how groundbreaking your conclusions are, if you can't communicate them, they're going to get lost in the noise.
Exactly. You've got to make them heard.
So this brings us back to that principle. Start with the image.
Yes. Paint that picture.
Paint a picture.
So with your words.
Make those conclusions come alive.
Yes. Make them vivid.
So instead of saying, our analysis suggests we need to diversify our product line.
It's a little dry.
Right. I could say something like, imagine a world where our customers can choose from a vibrant ecosystem of products, perfectly tailored to their unique needs.
Much better.
Right.
Much more engaging.
It's like an invitation.
It is.
Step into this exciting future.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm starting to get a sense of the language that we can use. But what are some other strategies to make those conclusions stick?
So Minto is a big fan of analogies.
Relating your conclusion to something that your audience already understands can help it click instantly.
Okay, so if I'm explaining a complex financial concept, I might say something like, imagine it's like balancing your checkbook.
Yeah.
But on a much larger scale.
Perfect example.
To make it more relatable.
Exactly.
And then we can't forget about examples.
Oh, examples are so powerful.
Right. Those specific real-world illustrations.
Yeah, they make it real.
They turn an abstract idea into something tangible. Yeah, I love those for instance moments where you're like, oh, now I get it.
Exactly. The light bulb goes off.
And then to add even more weight to our conclusion, we can use quotes from respected sources.
It's like borrowing their credibility.
Borrowing that credibility. So if I'm making a case for investing in renewable energy, I might quote a leading scientist. Or a successful entrepreneur who's already championing that cause.
Exactly. You're aligning yourself with experts.
And then stories.
Oh, stories are amazing.
Right, because stories are like those mental magnets that just draw us in.
They do.
And they make information stick.
They make it memorable.
Yes. I always remember things better.
Me too.
When they're part of a good story.
It's because they tap into our emotions.
Yes.
Create that connection.
Okay, so now I'm ready to make my conclusions sizzle.
Good.
But what about when we have to present them in a more formal setting?
Okay, sure.
Like a business report or a presentation to a large group.
All right, well, Minto has some good advice for that too.
Okay, tell me.
She suggests using headings strategically.
Okay.
to highlight your key conclusions.
Okay.
Think of them like those bold, underlined takeaways
Yeah.
that draw the reader's eye.
So instead of just having a generic heading that says conclusion.
Yeah, too boring.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I might say something like, what does this all mean for our company's future?
Perfect.
Right.
Much more interesting.
Turning that heading into a mini statement.
Yeah, you're guiding the reader.
Okay, I love that. But what if I have to present a lot of data?
Okay.
Or complex analysis?
Well, Minto would say keep it clear and concise.
Mm-hmm.
Tables, charts, graphs are your friends.
Yeah.
Remember, our brains process visual information much faster than text.
It's like giving those data points a makeover.
Yeah, exactly.
To make them more digestible.
Right. But keep it simple.
Okay.
Uncluttered.
Mm,
Make sure it's relevant.
got it.
No chart junk.
Okay, I'm feeling like a data visualization pro now.
That's great.
But what about when we have to present conclusions that are maybe sensitive?
Sure.
Potentially controversial?
That can be tricky.
How do we navigate those waters?
Well, that's where those communication skills we talked about earlier really come in.
Mm-hmm.
Minto really emphasizes being diplomatic, tactful, even when you're presenting challenging conclusions.
So it's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between honesty and sensitivity.
Exactly.
Okay.
Stick to the facts,
Uh-huh.
avoid personal attacks,
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge different perspectives,
Got that.
even if you don't agree with them.
So instead of saying,
Yeah.
this department's performance has been abysmal,
Right, that's harsh.
I might say something like,
Yeah.
we've identified some areas where this department could benefit from additional support and resources.
Perfect. Much better.
Right.
Much more constructive.
Okay.
You're acknowledging the challenges,
Mm-hmm.
but you're framing those conclusions in a positive,
Okay.
solution-oriented way.
I love that.
It's not just about conveying information.
Yeah.
It's about persuading,
Mm-hmm.
inspiring,
Right.
driving action.
Okay. This has been a whirlwind tour of presenting conclusions.
It has.
I feel like I've unlocked a whole new level of communication mastery.
I'm glad.
But before we wrap up this part, are there any final words of wisdom from Minto that you think our listeners should really take to heart?
I think one of the most important things
Mm-hmm.
is that Minto reminds us that clear thinking is a skill that
Okay.
you can learn
I love that.
and practice.
So it's not something you're born with?
No.
Okay, that's such a relief to hear.
Yeah, we can all get better.
Because that means that we all have the potential
We do.
to become brilliant communicators
Exactly.
if we put in the effort.
If you're willing to put in the work.
Yeah.
It's just like learning a musical instrument or a new sport or any skill, really.
Yeah, you might hit some sour notes or fumble the ball in the beginning.
For sure.
Right. But with practice, you can get better.
Absolutely.
And Minto encourages us
Mm-hmm.
to celebrate those small wins along the way.
Those little victories
Yes.
keep you motivated.
It's like building a pyramid one block at a time.
I love that analogy.
Right.
Yeah.
We might not create a masterpiece right away,
It takes time.
but with that consistent effort,
Mm-hmm.
we can reach those new heights.
You got it.
Okay, I'm ready to pyramidize the world.
I love it.
But before we send our listeners off
Okay.
on their pyramid building adventures,
Yes.
any final thought-provoking nugget
Okay.
to leave them with, something that maybe builds on what we've talked about,
Mm-hmm.
but wasn't explicitly mentioned?
Okay, how about this? While the pyramid principle gives us all these tools for clear thinking
Mm-hmm.
and communication,
Yeah.
it doesn't really address the emotional side of things.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
Because even with the most logically perfect argument,
Yeah.
if I deliver it with the wrong tone,
Mm-hmm.
or if I fail to connect with my audience on an emotional level,
Right.
it's going to fall flat.
Absolutely. You've got to have both.
So how do we combine
Yeah.
the power of the pyramid principle
Mm-hmm.
with the principles of emotional intelligence?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. How do we weave in empathy, self-awareness?
Those social skills.
Yes.
This is so important.
To become even more effective communicators.
It's the next level.
It's like we've climbed to the top of the pyramid,
Right.
but now there's this whole other dimension
There is.
to explore.
Mhm.
This realm of emotions,
Yeah.
connections,
Right.
that intangible spark
Yeah.
that really ignites understanding.
I think that's beautifully said.
So it's about finding that balance
Mm-hmm.
between the head
Yeah.
and the heart.
Between logic and emotion
Yeah.
to create communication that truly resonates
Yes.
and inspires.
So to our listeners,
Yeah.
whether you're writing a report,
Mm-hmm.
giving a presentation, or just trying to explain something important to someone you care about,
Yeah.
remember, The pyramid principle can be your guide
Your foundation.
to compelling communication,
But don't forget those emotional connections.
blending logic and emotion
It's the key
is the key.
to becoming a communicator who not only informs,
Yeah.
but also moves
Yes.
and motivates others.
It's been such a pleasure
Likewise.
exploring the depths of the pyramid principle with you.
It's been a great conversation.
And to our listeners, keep diving deep.
Keep learning
You keep exploring.
and keep building those pyramids.
We'll see you next time.